Yeah.
but they really are. Our
I
guest
think
has arrived.
Oh, hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris. Did you think we were going to bomb you with questions and you wore your hard hat? Oh, it's not a hard, it's a baseball cap. It looks like a hard hat with your microphones, with your headphones.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Rosie. Good morning, Valerie. I apologize for whatever reason. The calendar invite went to 9 p.m. and then you had to do something this morning. I found it on the 9 p.m. Inside the invite, it says a.m. though. So I apologize for.
That's my fault.
Jumping in. No worries. It happens.
That's okay. I'm glad that you saw it and that you popped in, because I think the audience was getting really tired of hearing Valerie and I just
I knew
talk
something
about.
was off when I couldn't. I was like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something. Then
I'm so sorry. That's okay. I mean, Rosie and I could talk about nothing for hours. So most people know if they come on Monday morning at 9, they may or may not get something useful other than a couple of giggles. So how are you, Chris? Catch us up. What's new?
Doing good. We're just in the middle of a lot of virtual events this season. So we've transitioned from COVID to doing virtual events in the podcasting space. So right now we have a masterclass coming up, and then I'm doing an event in June in Orlando. The first in-person event will be a blockchain event. And we're doing a lot in the blockchain, helping support that community. And then we're hoping sometime in November we'll be back at in-person events, and at the size that we were very fortunate that we've grown to quite a decent size. So we're hoping in November we'll be back to in-person events where everybody feels safe. Southeast people feel a little bit safer than other regions of the country, so everybody has to catch up together. And then out of country people have trouble traveling in for obvious reasons. So it's just been a logistical nightmare.
I like that. Catch up together. That's the first time I've heard that term. But Chris, sorry, everybody that's watching us, we know Chris very well. But why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Chris Krimitsos, and about 7 or 8 years ago, I created Podfest, which is a conference for podcasters and people that want a podcast. And we launched it in Tampa Bay, and over the years it kept doubling in size, so we had to take it to Orlando. And we've been helping people from all kinds of spectrum. So within Podfest, there's a lot of what we call sub brands, or we call them microcons. So we have Military Creator Con is one of them for the military creators. We have one called VidFest for YouTubers and live streamers, and so on and so forth. It literally, we have people that are faith-based podcasters. We have people that talk about relationships and sex, and all of those have their own niches within the big tent of Podfest. So we've created a world for creators, and moving into the future, we'll have an umbrella brand called Creative Village. So think of it as the Olympic Village for creators. And that's where all the creators from all the different pockets and niches come together to support each other. And then that's where also brands come to meet them and talk to them. So it's been an amazing ride. We had a really amazing live event last year. We were the last event out in Orlando, one of. I think our last day was March 9th. 2 days later, the shutdown started happening. So we had a live event last year, which is very rare. And then we transitioned to virtual, and that's kind of where I was saying we've been doing virtual events since. We received the Guinness World Record for the largest virtual event for a podcasting conference a few months back. Yeah, thank you, Rosie. We just did a second one. We're looking to certify that, and then we'll probably hang that hat up and just do virtual events. But doing a Guinness one is extremely difficult in logistics, and they have people called I forgot the name. They use it in John Wick, the movie, adjudicators. So you have to deal with adjudicators, and it gets very complicated when it comes to them certifying the records. But it's a lot of fun after you're done with it. So I'm almost done with that one. But bringing the people together is what I really enjoy. So that's what we've been doing, and we've been seeing a lot of creators have come online this last year for obvious reasons. They're home and they're like, what's a side project I've wanted to do but I haven't had a chance to do? So we've literally seen that ecosystem almost double in size just from the impact of COVID and people wanting to get things started that they haven't started yet.
Chris, I attended Podfest in Orlando last year. I was one of the few lucky ones that was able to get to the last event before everything shut down. And I have always talked about wanting to do a podcast. had never, I felt like so many newbies do. Oh, there's all these great podcasts and I'll never be as good as them and nobody will ever listen to me. And how could anybody want to hear what I have to say? But of all of the conferences I have attended in my professional life, which I'm old, so there's a lot of those in the bag. Your Podfest was the most collaborative event I've ever been to. I have the people that were sharing how to get started or how to find a niche or how to buy the equipment or where you needed the support systems from. Hands down, best conference I've ever attended. It was, and then we shut down, and that would have been a great opportunity to take what we learned in the Podfest and apply it. I'm like so many others that just had to scramble to get our businesses adjusted to what was now the new normal. So I'm anxious. If you're in November, I'll be there because I can't wait to go back and hear it again and then implement some of those things. It was really, really awesome.
Thank you, Rosie. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's being collaborative is probably one of our biggest culture. It's being a community, and collaboration is literally one of our, we always talk about, we want to have a collaborative environment. And if anyone hasn't been to a creator event, meaning YouTuber, streamer, they're very kind, but they're not collaborative in that, oh, I'm a 1 million subscribed channel, I shouldn't talk to you, you haven't started yet. So I don't like that. So we really want everybody to help one another. And when you set that agenda up, you see a lot of collaborations, which is very important to the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you've done that. You've attracted the perfect people for that. You've created a culture of collaboration and of exploration and made it easy for people to do that. And I congratulate you. That's really not easy to achieve with the volume of people you have presenting and participating in that conference. You've just done an exceptional job.
Thank you.
I love people. I love telling people, I know Chris.
Everybody likes to say they know Chris.
I know Chris.
Yeah, so good morning, Patrick. Patrick Watkins is joining us, and Wally says Podfest is the most welcoming family environment I've ever been associated with. So great job, Chris. Which I'm not surprised. I mean, you and your wife had already done that before, right? In other pockets of small business entrepreneurship. So it only makes sense that you would be just as successful doing Podfest.
Yeah, well, yeah, Valerie, when you came out of the military, remember you and I met, we had a small company, Tampa Bay business owners. And the challenge we had in that company is because we were geo-local, we couldn't scale that model up, and we needed more help because we were doing like 150 events a year. However, the community was really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What Podfest has allowed us to do is now the world is our oyster. In other words, we have people flying in from all over the world. So now we could scale that up over time and service quite a few people. So yeah, I would agree with you, Valerie. So a lot of people see the Podfest side of it, but there was like 2,000 at-bats locally of learning what works, what doesn't. But those were the seeds that were planted within Podfest. And we still have people that were at the first Podfest that show up, and that's what really helps the culture propel forward. And there's a lot of great people from Tampa Bay that show up. But Rosie, you used to, a lot of people in Tampa Bay don't realize like how big it is till they show up, and they're like, oh, there's people that fly in from all over the world to be part of this thing. And when they see it, they understand. I mean, we had a trailer in our trade show that was literally a full functioning studio. JBL brought in an entire 50-foot trailer with a stage and everything in the back. So it's a pretty cool thing that we're awesome. The host committee for this global event, you know.
So I saw, and which was what prompted me to reach out to see if you could join us. I thought I saw that you're having the Podfest in June in Orlando, so that's not happening. You've pushed it to
no. Unfortunately, people can't travel in, so we're pushing that back. Right now, we have Podfest Masterclass, which we just put up, I think, over this weekend. It's a virtual event happening first week and second week of May. First week is for beginners only, and second week is for people that have already started that want to go deep dive onto topics. So that's Podfest. It's podfestglobal.online is where you can find that, or podfestexpo.com.
So Chris, if they are, we talk to veterans in the programs all the time that and about the opportunity of podcasting as a way to get their brand out there, as well as to understand who their customers are and reach them. what if they're planning to attend, and we'll make sure to send those links out to everyone. Are there things that they can do prior to the start of that program in May, the beginners, to kind of grease the wheels, get their brains working in a certain way that they'll be more receptive or more understanding of what's coming at them?
Yes. So master classes usually when we go really deep dive for the advanced podcasters. So we've strategically and on purpose created a pre-event week that's beginner only. So that's exactly where we would want them. And we have free passes for that. So I'll send you guys a code to send to anyone that would like to get started. But right now, what I would say is watch a YouTube video or two of how do I set up my feed. That's usually how a podcast works, my podcasting feed. And it'll go over the concept of how to set up an RSS, which is basically the code that dictates where your audio goes. So podcasting is decentralized, unlike, let's say, video. Like if you have a YouTube channel, YouTube controls it. But if you have a podcast, no one controls it. And that code, if you have a hosting company, goes out to all these different audio players. So right now, for content creation, podcasting is the freest medium as we speak right now today. And a lot of that's going to change. But right now on YouTube, there's a lot of restrictions, especially if you have veterans that want to even talk about certain issues. They're non-negotiable on a lot of the platforms out there. So it's all about setting up your feed, looking up on YouTube how to set up a feed, podcasting feed specifically, and that'll give you just some nuts and bolts idea of what's going on. And then if you come to Podfest, we literally will have experts showing you here's how, literally step by step, how you set up a feed, which is, I would say, the most fundamental thing. After that, it's, Rosie, you mentioned, it's like your content. What is the content? What's the niche? That's a little bit more strategic thought. But the how-to is setting up your feed, and we're going to cover that in pre-week.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Because I think it's great when you want to go to one of these things, but if you have a little bit of pre-knowledge before you get there, it kind of helps you figure out what's going on. It's not so totally foreign to you that you at least understand some of the terminology.
And when is that masterclass, Chris?
That'll be May 3rd through the 7th with pre-week, and then the main week I think is 10th through the 13th. We just posted it up there, and I'm literally we're working on speaker submissions as we speak. So the cool part about that masterclass is pre-week you should be a beginner. In other words, like that's not where the veterans are going, because they're veteran podcasters, I should say, because they're going to wait for main week where we deep dive on how to build and monetize. But if you don't know anything, pre-week is set up for you purposefully, so you could also meet veteran podcasters and make connections as you're learning. So we think that's crucial. A lot of the bigger events that we do, it's mix match with everything. This one we said pre-week, I don't know how to do a podcast, great. Every day, that's what this will be. Main week, if you know how to do a podcast and you're still learning, don't get confused by joining us on main week. That's for podcasters already started. They kind of want to deep dive and grow what they got. So it's a really unique event for beginners and for veterans, and they each know which week is theirs. But the cool part is we're all in that app that I use, Hoova, to interact with each other. And I think that's a big collaborative thing that we really want to bring to the table.
That's pretty awesome. Chris, can I ask, do you have a presence on Clubhouse now too?
We do. I'm on Clubhouse. Podfest itself doesn't have, let's say, a presence, but a lot of our people will do stuff on Clubhouse. So I've done quite a few Clubhouses, looking to get back on Clubhouse. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with Clubhouse. I think it's going strong, but now LinkedIn and Twitter are trying to knock it off, which always happens. So let's just see how it goes. But right now, I think Clubhouse is the place to be and be seen with your voice, especially. So I just love everything going on there.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yeah. Oh, I have not been on Clubhouse because I don't have an iPhone.
I think they're rolling out Android soon, if not.
It just sounds so consuming. Like, I don't know. It just sounds so like a time suck. But I know people are really getting a lot of exposure through it. But it just seems like it would really take a lot of time.
Well, right now, Clubhouse is hot. We'll see when people come out of COVID. I know a lot of us in the Southeast are already like out and about, but we have to realize people in other states are like locked in completely. Yeah. Like, so Clubhouse is an outlet for them to literally, they're in their apartments and talking. So we'll see if that transfers when everything goes back. That's what a lot of experts like. Let's see how the behavior changes. Because if you get busy again, you might have the same opinion you have, Valerie, which is like, I don't know if I have time to dedicate to another platform. But right now, it's the place you want to be at if you want to be seen, because the most well-known entrepreneurs, celebrities, like the access to them it's flat in Clubhouse. Like you could walk into a room, and I've a friend networking literally with his favorite celebrities from the 80s and 90s, because everybody's on Clubhouse, and for him, he's getting kicks out of that, of meeting, Vanilla Ice and whoever's on there. But it's an interesting gumbo that's being created in that app for sure.
That's so cool. So Chris, other than the master class, for our listeners that are thinking about going into or starting a podcast, like what kind of like money, like how much would it cost to start your own podcast?
So if you want to talk about like how much does it cost to start a podcast, probably under $500. And that's assuming that you don't want to do your first episode, you need an editor's help. If you could figure out how to edit yourself, really the microphone itself is 100 or under most of them. The mic I'm using now is the AT 2005 Audio Technica AT 2005. It's under $100. I think it's like $69. And then you just need a host. Some hosts are free, some are premium. Let's say you use a really great host like Libsyn. I think their base plan is $7 or $10 a month. So even on the yearly plan, it won't cost you more than 100. So between that and that, it's 200. Then you need a voiceover for your intro. Maybe that costs you $25 or 50 on Fiverr. And I'm going high end, by the way, on these prices. Maybe $250 max, and then the other $250, figure maybe you hire an editor to help you with your first show, first 2-3 shows, you batch record them. If you have Zoom, a higher end recording is Squadcast or Riverside.fm. Those are really great. Those cost something like 10 or 15 or $20 a month. So it's not much. I mean, that's all you need. After that, it's the most important thing is the education. That's why I started the conference, because once we all realize like the equipment's like nothing, it's the cost is what Rosie said. It's the collaboration with people in your niche and the collaboration with other creators, because there's so many different ways to make money and so many different ways to grow your audience. That's where you kind of invest. Once you realize like, oh, I got it started, what's next? That what next is like, you got to go out to conferences and meet peers or go out to a local group. In Tampa, we have the Florida Podcast Association. We meet every second Tuesday of every month. So like, that's where I would plug in the beginning to get my feet under me and compare notes on, keywords and stuff like that.
That's interesting. Would you mind either shooting me an email, or I actually tagged you on our live post on our Facebook page. Just drop links to those different things that you mentioned, like the microphone and that kind of stuff, so that if our listeners want to get ready for masterclass, they can go shop.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. So and I don't know anything about podcasts, just because I don't. How does somebody determine whether or not their show might be unique? Is there like, can you go search it somewhere, the topic, and then see if you have any competitors, I guess?
So in audio, you would go on iTunes, is the largest database of podcasts, and you would search your show title, and then you would see what comes up. And under show title, it says people also like, and you would hit that button and you see what other shows they like within that title. So you definitely want to have some keywords that people are searching in app. And then as far as competitive, I'm not big on that, because in audio and video, it's the opposite of business, in that if you collaborate with your other competitors, you all do better. So it's a very unique thing where the opposite happens if you have a good show and you have 3-4 other people in the same niche as you, and you could help one another. What people don't realize, if a listener likes your show, they'll probably like 2-3 other shows in the same niche. So they'll listen to more of the same thing. And if you all help joint venture with one another by dropping what we call episode drops, they do like a little tester for your episode, their episode, that audience all grows exponentially. So I'm a big proponent of collaborating with your peers within the same niche. obviously if it's this, actually we have a guy right now, he literally collaborates with another show that's the same exact concept, like no difference. And they both help each other grow, which is very unique
Yeah.
experience. So that's that. I'll drop the links for you. The main thing I would have anyone that's listening, live streaming is really amazing and it's very important because it could grab an audience. But let's say a video show usually is housed in YouTube because that's where I know I could find it almost like it's archived in YouTube. And that's why you'll see YouTube shows do well as the older episodes get picked up and people watch them. They never do well in the new episodes. Almost always, they always do well on the older episodes going viral. And then it pushes up the newer episodes and it helps build an audience. And then for audio, you want your audio housed inside a podcast because that's the home for audio. Those are the two homes for video and audio. After that, all the live streaming is where we could actually grab that audience and bring them to our homes. So that's really important to understand. So a live stream to me is very much like being in a kiosk in the mall and you're kind of asking people to come over, check out what you got. But if you wanted someone to do business with you over and over again, you would be more like for instance, you'd be the makeup counter in Macy's. I know when I go there, it's makeup, or I go to the men's section for shoes at, a certain store. I know I'm getting shoes. So that's what your YouTube channel, your podcast is like. Okay, I know I've seen them before, but now I want to go visit them and listen to everything they got. And that's how you build up an audience.
That's awesome. Appreciate that. You sharing that with everybody. And, when you first started Podfest, I can't believe it's been 7 years ago, but
No,
I
mentioned you said that. I said the same thing.
So I didn't realize that you had started, that's the year I retired from the Army. I didn't realize that you had started that long ago. But back then I had mentioned to you that I was wanting to do a podcast and, life just got away from me. But I told Jeremy, my husband, that 2021 is my podcast year. And I can't wait. I don't want to say anything yet because we haven't got everything all set up, but I have, of course, she's not as fabulous as Rosie, but I have a fabulous anchor. I don't know what to call it.
Co-host.
Co-host. Yeah. And it's going to be so fun.
It's a blast. Have fun with it and create. The one thing I'll tell everybody, and I wrote a book on this because people kept guilting themselves. I mean, my concept is very simple. Start ugly and figure it out as you go along. All our favorite podcasters that we know of today, many of them did not start in the podcast of them for today. They started with some podcast and they pivoted. I can't tell you how many people pivoted mid-form, say, I don't want to do this topic anymore. I think I like this topic. But getting started is really 90% of it. From there, you could always, it might be like, hey, I like podcasts, but I love doing video shows better and I want to be on YouTube. So it's like that self-discovery is really important to just get started and figure out what you like, what you don't like. And then if it's something you don't want to do, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either.
We say the same thing about our entrepreneurship class. We have so many people that come in with one idea and they change, or they realize that their concept isn't viable. They realize there's more competition out there than they thought. Or
they think their entire business model needs to be pristine and perfect before they sell something. Right. And that's not, and that was the first session that I attended last year was talking about just get started. It's every person I spoke to said, oh my God, my first podcast was pathetic. It was just awful. It was just, I'm embarrassed that it's still out there someplace. But knowing that other people started in that same place, it was half of the battle of saying, okay, I think I can do this. If they can do this and they feel that way about theirs, then what's stopping me? Nothing. I'm stopping me. That's the problem. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned there, is to start ugly.
You always have shared one story that you met that one guy at that conference, and he had one listener or something like that for like 9 months. Share that with Chris.
Chris probably knows this story. The guy, the very first session, he said, talking about not getting started and being in your own way. And he said he just kept putting out podcast episodes, and he had no listeners and no listeners and no listeners. And one day he got one listener, and it was from Australia or someplace. It wasn't even a US citizen. And he was fine just to keep doing it for that one listener. That's not unlike what we do, Valerie. We've been doing
every Monday morning at 9
since the beginning of April or the end of March last year when the shutdowns happened. And some days we have one person on here, and yet we just keep coming. We just keep talking.
We keep talking.
And Chris, I got to tell you, for all the time I've talked to Russ about wanting to start a podcast, he keeps telling us, you guys are already doing it. You just don't even know that that's what you're doing. But so yeah, that was what made me realize that it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm 60 years old. I've had periods in my life where I'm talking and nobody's listening to me. That's never bothered me before. It shouldn't bother me now. So.
Oh, you're so funny. After all these years, she still makes me laugh out loud more than any person I know. To crack me up. So, well, anyway, I think that I'm out of coffee, and I know Chris has got more of the world to conquer. So, but Chris, thank you so much for joining us at Action Zone and Monday morning at 9 a.m., not 9 p.m., because Rosie will be very much asleep by 9 p.m.
That's true. That's true.
That's what happens when you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah, if you're 3, 4 in the morning, 9 p.m. is late. I know I have 2 little ones, so there's days that that goes that way,
Yeah.
I appreciate you both. This is fun. And when it comes to the creation journey, I have multiple podcasts I do, but more as a hobbyist. And what I always tell people is, yes, if you have a business strategy and you want to implement it, great. But let's say you're a hobbyist and you're just enjoying it. There's nothing wrong with that as well. Just make sure when someone tries to say, are you monetizing? You might say, I don't do it for that reason. I do it because I just enjoy putting this stuff out there, and it's my art. And that's okay as well, because we deal with people across spectrums. And I think it's really important that if someone's enjoying what they're doing, and to them it's an outlet for their creativity, if I always believe you should get paid for your art, but let's just say the payment for them is it gives them an outlet to be creative, and that's okay too. So it just, with these creation mechanisms, a lot of our most famous podcasters, they wound up monetizing by accident because they were just enjoying what they were doing. I don't know, Rosie or Val, you probably heard me talk about the guy that does Sleep With Me. He puts people to sleep. He literally had a superpower of creating stories that had it had a middle, a beginning, and end, but they kind of meander and they put you to sleep because there's no point to them. Or that was the point. And he would put his girlfriends to sleep by reading them these stories. And I always thought he was kidding, but he was 100% serious. And he said he started putting it on a podcast, and no one really was listening until one day a local affiliate saw it. They fell asleep to his podcast. He's now one of the largest podcasters in the world. He puts millions of people to sleep every week. I think somewhere like 3 million people will tune in to go to sleep with him. And that is his full-time living. He didn't leave his job for years because he had to pinch himself. Like, he goes, there's no way. He was just putting it out there to help people with no monetization in play. But it turned out to become something that helps people the world over. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, don't guilt yourself. If you're looking for business, absolutely, you want to do the strategy. But if you're doing this just to have fun and you're having fun, then keep doing it. And then, you'll refine as you get better and you listen to your audience. But I commend both of you doing this every Monday. I think it's awesome, and I appreciate you inviting me on.
You're welcome anytime, Chris.
Yeah,
maybe Valerie, in November we'll do one at the
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
That would be incredible.
The Valerie and Rosie show, we could totally do that.
Yeah, because Russ and all of the military creative,
everybody would be there. Yep.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. Okay, we'll have to work on that then from now to November.
I'll have to get my podcast lingo and knowledge up.
You got Rosie. Rosie's already got it going. There's not much lingo. It's what is a sub? If someone says sub, remember that's a subscriber. That's about it. I don't know. For YouTube, it's subs. For podcasters, downloads. They usually don't say stream. Streaming is more of a live streaming term. So in a podcast, they'll say how many downloads. That's about it. And download means how many people downloaded your episode after 30 days is usually but there's not much after that. Once you get into it, it's they'll get passionate about your show, and that's what you'll tell them what you're excited about, and that's what gets them going.
Well, this was fun. I appreciate you coming on, Chris. And I know you're so busy, and it was nice that we were
Thank
able
you,
to-
ladies. I'm glad it wasn't 9 p.m. I'd be sitting there like, where's everybody? I knew it was in the morning because it was a morning show. I was like, so
Well,
I
you have a
appreciate
great-
you both.
Have a great week. Enjoy Easter Monday. Today's
Yes.
the day you're supposed to have fun with your family and friends. And we kicked it off Monday with our good friend, Chris. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.